The FBI had the laptop for about a year. They knew that it was real. And you say the FBI was grooming Twitter employees to recognize your laptop story. How so?
That's right, Bill and Dana. It was pretty clear that there was really a psychological operation being conducted against Twitter executives by the FBI, so that when our story came up in October of 2020, that they would recognize it immediately as a Russian hack and leak operation, because they'd been warned for weeks by FBI exactly what to look for. In fact, to look for this operation in October, and that it would involve Hunter Biden. And remember that the FBI was paying Twitter $3.4 million they gave them to help censor Americans, and particularly our story 3 weeks before the election.
You can't always tell everything that's going on right up front, because if you tell everything that's going on right up front, then your enemy is going to know exactly what you're doing.
I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So yeah, we have a bigger issue than just Democrats. We have an issue of the American indoctrinated people that just let things like this go. It's been happening for years and years and years, and frankly, I'm sick of it. And so I'm just telling you, they're telling you, and they've been telling you this stuff in front of your face for a really long time.
Our own government working against us. I mean, we've always had the government working against us. We just didn't know it. I don't really think any of that stuff is news to anyone, that Obama and team were conniving and trying to, well, they're calling it overthrow the government of the United States ever since they even started rigging the elections. I don't think this is news to people who know what's going on. Now, that first clip that I played that had Adam Kinzinger in it and Liz Cheney, and that was the January 6th committee, who were seriously, I couldn't even believe it, hugging all of the witnesses that were going to be testifying in the January 6th committee investigation. And that was them lining up and hugging each other and acting like, you know, there was some kind of insurrection. All of that thing, that whole entire thing was staged. And now they're investigating that too. The January 6th committee is under investigation themselves, as they should be, because it was a total orchestrated farce. And that's what makes you go, okay, there are rhinos, there are people that are working against us every single minute of every single day. And in my opener, I say, you know, it's the government, but it's not just the government. It's the people who are benefiting from those politicians that are put in that place. And that's just really wrong. I want to say hi to Becky T before she heads off to lunch. She said that she was on her lunch break now, and so she's going to watch the show later. So I wanted to make sure I said something to her. And then we've got people in all different kinds of rooms. We've got Richard over here. He's one of my longtime moderators. And Kim, she says, hi there, everybody. Always good to hear from you. Good, thanks. Who else do we have in here? We've got Angie Warren on Twitch. Nice to see you. Linda Dubois, how are you today? Let's see. Paula is in here. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll through these. Splendid Ape Diva. How are you? Technomag, nice to see you too. J6 Plotters, I agree with that. This whole entire thing was completely orchestrated, and it was just because they didn't want Trump to be sitting in that position. And Jamie is in the room too, and Nice Industrial Tech. Nice to see everybody today. And so we already knew this stuff a long time ago. I think, didn't we start reporting on this like in 2016, 2017? We kept telling people to watch out. We know, and we know what that we know. We have been trying to make sure that I give you the most pertinent information when it comes to this stuff over the years. And we knew the election was rigged. It was obvious. And now these people are coming out and saying it directly. So I have clips from Carolyn Levitt coming out, Tulsi Gabbard, and some other panelists that are saying the same exact things that Obama. Now, I don't think it was Obama. I don't think it's just Obama. I don't think Obama was the orchestrator of the whole entire thing, actually. There's people above that are nameless, faceless people who are pulling all the strings, telling everybody what to do. And Obama is just a puppet. I don't think he's smart enough to figure out all this stuff. I really just don't. I think they've groomed him into the position that he is in so that he can be articulate. But I think he is definitely conditioned to do what he did. I remember seeing and sharing pics in the middle of the night, that bad photos of Hunter, and they went poof. And so did millions of accounts on Twitter. Yeah, exactly. They did the same thing to my channel when I was reporting on it. They were giving me strikes all the time. Disinformation, all the election stuff. It's like, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me why you would want to censor people that have real-time stuff. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. You literally can't make this stuff up. I didn't make up all those videos of the people standing outside the voter areas. I didn't make up the stuff about Hillary Clinton and the Russian crap. That's all they ever said. Russia. And now we know that, of course, Russia doesn't have to do anything. They have Democrats to do it for them. All they have to do is watch them destroy their own. It's like destroying your own place where you live. Why would you do that? And it's all about power and money. That's the reason, power and money. They think that they destroy us, then they get more power. And that's just not true. There's way more of us than there are of them. Because it has been a historical fact that these people always get roasted one way or another. So, I mean, you know, I think what evil has done over the years is perfected itself until we've gotten to this point. Kim. Yeah, Obama is just totally out of his mind now. He's stuttering lately, not too articulate. Well, he's still kind of articulate. It's just that they're trying to figure out, how can we get around this? How can we get around these indictments? So I'm going to show you some of this stuff. But before I show all of that to you, I want to show you this thing, because now the big controversy is going to come out that Donald Trump, how dare he make the ballroom great again? So they're saying, you know, that he's altering the White House. He's doing this, he's doing that. You know, how dare he do this? Well, I guess they forgot that the White House was a little tiny building at first. And Teddy Roosevelt is the one who built the West Wing. This is off of Twitter, which is true. I mean, all these facts are actually true. Taft made the executive office the Oval Office. He's the one who made it into an oval. FDR added the entire East Wing and included an indoor pool for himself, because I don't know if you know this or not, but the presidents are able to remodel the White House for however they want to. Truman gutted the entire White House. Nixon added a bowling alley. Remember that? Obama took out the bowling alley and added a basketball court because he didn't want to bowling down there. And Trump is building a ballroom. But the thing is, Trump is using his own money, and he's also using donor money. Yeah, I do know who Russell J. Gould is. Yes, I do. So, if they're going to whine and cry about something, maybe they should be whining and crying about the fact that there's really, really, really stupid and can't comprehend regular stuff that everybody with a brain can do. And I don't even want to go into that right now. I have an email from someone who was like, if you're a nurse, man, we're all in trouble. Isn't that right, Rosalind?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're both sitting here like in disbelief of these emails that we're getting. It just makes no sense at all. But I do want to share some of these things with you. So I figured out how to do this screen sharing. So now this is, I don't know how credible all of these sources are, but it does sound interesting to me. So I think we're going to have to watch and see about this because, okay, John McAfee, I don't know if you know who he is. This is just a John McAfee news feed. So don't think it's John McAfee. It's not. It's just a person posting like that. So anyway, it says the West Wing logs expose Michelle Obama sneaking into the Oval Office alone to sign over a dozen shady orders and pardons while puppet Biden was probably napping. Now, we don't know about that part. But sneaking in there to the Oval Office to sign stuff is interesting. West Wing logs are saying this. This unelected, power-hungry grabbed the auto pen and played shadow president like a deep state dictator. Now, we do know for a fact that Jill did that. Jill signed stuff. It wasn't sneaking out in the middle of the night because there's pictures of her without Biden even in the room where she's got the pen and she's got, you know, the book that they have. She's doing all of that stuff. And so that isn't, nobody elected Jill. Dr. Jill, according to Whoopi Goldberg. And she's such an excellent doctor too. Did you see that little clip of her saying that? And the people had to remind her that she is not a health doctor. She has a doctorate in education. Yeah. And if you ever read her dissertation for her doctorate, wow. Wow. Talk about just letting somebody through who has no credentials whatsoever. Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So let me see. I've got some more stuff here I want to show you because this is unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Let me see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I just played that information for you. It was posted by Eagle Wings. FBI's Christopher Wray and Jack Dorsey caught red-handed in conspiracy to torch the 2020 election. Wray groomed Dorsey and Twitter crew to spot and smother the Hunter Biden laptop, in case you didn't get it from the video. Then bribed him with $3.4 million in taxpayer cash to rig the overthrow of the American democracy. Now, if you didn't watch Mark Zuckerberg's testimony in Congress, you might want to do that because he's kind of admitting it without admitting it. Yeah, Brian is absolutely right. How is The View still on the air? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who's watching it. It's supposed to be the #1 daytime show. I'm like, to who? I don't know anyone who watches it at all. You don't say. Not perfect, Christopher Wray. Yeah, doctors can't write a readable prescription, let alone a government document. Well, then she's right up there because, wow, her dissertation sounded like it was written by about, I don't know, maybe a 6th grader. It could be called To Serve Man. 31 Atlas is a giant kitchen. Okay. Didn't know that. Thank you for sharing. I don't know. Here's some more information about this overthrow of the government. Let me see. I want to do this AOL opinion. Okay. Now you already know if we're going to go on a liberal thing. You already know what the spin's probably going to be. And this is an opinion thing. It is not factual. But I do think it's interesting to see what they're saying. Opinion. Clinton exposed as Russiagate source. CIA's Ratcliffe teases more docs coming. Yeah, which he dropped, I guess, yesterday or the day before, which I tried to find them, and I couldn't find them. So I don't know if you guys have them. Let me know. CIA Director John Ratcliffe is stepping into the fray, backing up claims by Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, which I'm going to play that Russiagate's origins can now be tied directly to a coterie of intelligence officials and also to former President Barack Obama. Obama allegedly directed those officials, James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper. And we know it's more than that because if you watch that show Shadow Government by Millennial Millie and Tori, There's a lot more involved. To reach stronger conclusions about Russia's impact on the 2016 stolen election, that was my editorial, even though they knew there was no hacking. Yeah, there wasn't any hacking. What was the point of the hacking? They already had the machines. They weren't hacked. Things are switched, not hacked. Now Ratcliffe says then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was also involved. What hasn't come out yet and what's going to come out is the underlying intelligence that I have spent the last months making recommendations about final declassification and sent that to the Department of Justice. That will come out in the Don Durham report classified annex, which is interesting because remember all the posts about on number 17, let's just call it that. Oh, I see. Suppressed pictures of 31 analysts for 74 years. Yikes. That's a lot. That's a long time. Funny the Democrats want paper ballots now that Smartmatic was sold. They probably don't want tabulators either. How dare you? That's the thing that's actually causing the problem is the tabulators. All right. So, but they've already known this for years. Let's go to the video file of Tulsi Gabbard, because she's laying it all out here for you. And I released the declassified Obama files. Obama.
How President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence.
By the way, you guys already know where it came from. It came from that meeting between Hillary Clinton and those two Ukrainian lawyers, a member of the FBI, at least one member of the FBI, and members of the DNC got together, concocted the story, took the John McCain. Remember, John McCain brought them the opposition research that Marco Rubio did on President Trump, which amounted to nothing, which is why Marco Rubio didn't use it. John McCain brought it to them so that they could make up the Steele dossier thing. One day she'll get that. Now they might start going back further, but right now she's focused on Obama. Then she's probably going to go back to the Hillary Clinton thing, because Hillary Clinton's team is the one who actually orchestrated that particular event. It's still so exacerbating to this day. You're already reporting this 7, 8 years ago. I know. I was saying this then.
That disproved their false
How
claims.
dare me?
They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration.
Yep.
We're here today because the American people deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice. That we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts, using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community. The production of this intelligence community assessment was subject to unusual directives directly from the president and senior political appointees, especially the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report also shows how later that same day, on December 9th, Brennan ordered the publication of, quote, substandard reporting on Russian activities, which had previously been withheld from publication of prior assessments because the information was judged, quote, to have not met long-standing publication standards. Some of the information later used in the Obama-ordered assessment over the objections of veteran CIA officers was, quote unquote, unclear or from unknown sources. The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment.
Now, before we go any further, just so you know, and they're saying this in the room, and it's true, that Brennan was just referred to the DOJ for prosecution today for lying to Congress. And if you were watching any of all those congressional hearings, Hillary Clinton, even before in 2012 and all that, the amount of lying that was on the Democrat side for the past, well, since at least Obama, okay? If you watched all of those hearings from then till now, every single time a Democrat has been in that those congressional hearings, they've been lying. And we know it because we already have proof that they were lying. So what she's saying really is not a shock to people who are paying any attention whatsoever to the stuff that's going on, like you and I.
Stating, quote, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected.
No,
Yet, the
no.
Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, we assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances, when possible, by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him, including their mouthpieces in the media, knowingly lied as they repeated the contrived narrative that was created in this January 2017 intelligence community assessment with high confidence as though it were fact.
Yep, that's right.
John-
That was the leak to Yahoo. And remember, if you watched Nancy Pelosi, she said it's called the wrap-up smear. You are the ones who make up the scenario, then you feed it to the media, then the media repeats it, and then the politicians sit there and say, my source came from the New York Times or, the Washington Post or something like that.
John Brennan, as CIA director, stated in a memo to his agency staff in December of 2016, saying, quote, there is strong consensus among us on the scope, nature, and intent of Russian interference in our presidential election. This was reported by NBC News, confirming that Brennan, along with James Clapper and James Comey, agreed with the CIA's assessment that Russia intervened to help Trump win the presidency.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's not anything new to people who've been paying attention the whole time. The only thing that's happening right now is we're getting vindicated for what we were saying. Is this all a lead up of interference in his first term and then the 2020 situation where it will give Trump an extra term? I don't know. I mean, in order to get an extra term, there would have to be a war declared. And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to have some kind of, I don't think we're going to have a civil war. I think if we have anything at all, it's going to be a rising up of the sleeper cells, because Carr, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but Carr seems as if they're ready to rise up if we don't start electing their people, which I'm talking about like Mamdani I'm not going to, I would never vote for a person like him. But if we don't, you know how we are. We're the infidel. They infiltrated our country, and now all of a sudden we're the problem. I mean, I'm not invading their country. I don't care. I don't care what they want to do in their own backyard. What I do care about is infringing on my rights, because we have something here called the Constitution that they don't care about. Yeah. Bannon, what did you say? Bannon sure seems confident that Trump will get a third term. I don't know. I mean, I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to Steve Bannon. And the only reason I say that is because he's one of those guys that was on the outskirts of the Trump administration the first time. Remember, he was hired for about 5 minutes and then he was let go. And that issue, I don't think, has ever been resolved. So I think a lot of the stuff that he says might be speculation. And I don't always agree with the guests that he has on, because I know who they are. It's like, okay, so we have this little realm of podcaster people, all right, and independent journalists, all right. And I see them behind the scenes. So what you see in front of you is totally different from what they are behind the scenes. So I can't even tell you who behind the scenes I would go, yeah, you need to pay attention to that guy. Just saying. Do you all really believe any president actually runs this show? That is kind of debatable. Okay. And here's why I'm saying that. It's obvious to me, since Trump is a business person and he does know how to run a business, that he is doing some stuff. But I think what he's really getting is limited information. I don't think he's getting all the information so that every single situation that he might have his finger on, that's my thing. When you have limited knowledge and you think you have it all, you're not necessarily making the best choice. Is that what you're talking about? Because I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about. I think that he's doing a better job at the moment, but I'm kind of on the fence as to where we're going here. I understand the invasion of the cities. And I say invasion of the cities because the invasion of the cities actually happened with the illegals, and the Democrats let them in here. The reason I'm saying that I think the cities were invaded is because the Democrats want it that way. But I don't think it has I really don't think it has anything to do with the things that you guys think it has to do with. I really, really think it has more to do with making sure you keep this in your hand. Because the stuff that's happening with AI and surveillance is way worse than any of this stuff that's really here for a distraction. No, I mean, I believe the military is running the show. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, I think that you might be right with that. I think we've said stuff like that before. I don't think what's happening in front of our face is exactly what is happening. Here's what I am going to say. Okay, so it's like this. You think you're seeing something. Just court is a perfect example. You think the judge is saying something that the judge is not saying. It's syntax. It's called syntax. In word, in written word, it's syntax. And syntax is like, okay, if I am saying something to you and the definitions of those words are different than what you think they are, I can say a sentence to you and you think you know what it means, but you really don't know what it means. Okay? So that being said, I think that's what's happening here, because you can make something look like something that it's not right in front of a person's face, and you know what's going on, but they don't know what's going on. Okay, because I know a lot of stuff, I really do. I know a lot of things that it's very difficult for people's minds to wrap around because they just don't have the capacity to get it in their head. So it really makes it difficult for me to tell you something and warn you with something because it's that hard to comprehend. That's why I'm talking about this stuff. Okay. The military is going to be run, and we're going to talk about military. The military is going to be run by AI if we're not careful. And that means that there's no empathy whatsoever. None at all. Doesn't Black's Law do that? Mean one thing as far as we're taught, but another for them? Black's Law Dictionary gives you the definition of what they're supposed to be doing in court. So yes, Black's Law is the dictionary of the court. Now, you wouldn't need a dictionary of the court if it wasn't that they were twisting words. So sometimes, like in the court filings that I have to do, I put in to the court the definitions of the words that we're going to use, because otherwise we're talking past each other. So for example, let's talk about court for a minute. So yeah, the military could actually be running the whole entire thing. That's true. But who's the head of the military? That would be Trump. Okay, so in that regard, if we're going to change back to the Republic, because I think that's what you're wanting to talk about. If we're going to change back to the Republic, the coup started with Obama. It was interrupted by Trump. Then they tried it harder in 2020 by stealing that election. And we took it back over because of putting Trump in there again. What do you think of this? Think of his course, the claim for life. Who are we talking about? Ben Fulford? I'm not going to talk about Ben Fulford. Well, yes, I am, because now that I said that, you're going to be like, why not? I think Ben Fulford has taken some information from other people and made it as if it's his own. And I don't respect that at all. So, no, not Ben Fulford. Well, yeah, I do know who he is. And I remember that at the time that I started actually reporting on YouTube, he took some of my stuff and pretended as if it was his stuff. And I was like, but wait, you can actually see the timestamp. Oh, Russell J. Gould. Oh, that's different. For the claim of the life is Russell J. Gould. You sure you want to go down that road? I mean, I know who Russell J. Gould is, and I understand the stuff that he's talked about. I think it's weird, and it doesn't have much merit as far as we're still doing stuff that he supposedly took over. So you're only as good as your enforcement. Oh, talking about syntax. Yeah. Okay, that's different. Yeah, syntax, Russell Gould. Yeah, exactly. That's true. Russell Gould almost talks in. Have you ever seen the stuff he's written? Oh, it's so hard to read sometimes. Postmaster that took control of the flag, and yes, that's right. That's Russell Gould, whatever his name is. Yeah, that's right. But as far as it's a new language to a point, but you can actually codify the language in whatever it is you're doing. This isn't even really the subject that I was going to be talking about, but apparently that's the road you guys want to go down. So we're going to go the road. It's crazy, but his syntax can only be taken one way. Yeah, and it should only be taken one way. If the words that are coming out of my mouth are taken a different way than the normal person can actually read, then that they're useless. It's useless to talk to someone where they don't understand what's going on. And in court and lawyers, they do it all the time. That's why you have to establish, what are we talking about? What kind of language are we using here? Are we using American plain English? When someone walks in the room, they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. Or are we going to use legalese where you've got to have the Black's Law Dictionary to try to, well, our language isn't useless in court if you establish the rules from the very beginning. So you have to establish the rules from the very beginning. And if you put it in your motion as judicial notice, it would be the language the court speaks. You don't have to speak that language if you don't want to. And the reason you don't have to is because the United States Supreme Court already said you don't. So just you have to put it in a motion. You can't just assume that they're going to speak English to you in everyday language. You can use the Supreme Court case law in your motion to back up your claim that you're going to use regular American English, and you can even establish what dictionary you're going to use from the Webster's dictionary, if that's what you want to use. If you're going to say that Black's Law Dictionary, if you're going to use a Black's Law Dictionary definition in one of your court filings, that's fine, but you should put it in there. I've done that before too, because I'm like, okay, you guys are not understanding the words that are coming out of your own mouths. So we're going to establish the rules right here, because the box that you created is the box that you need to stay on. I don't need to stay in it, but you do. So you can't try to talk circles around us and ignore the laws that you wrote because you want to. That's the same thing that Obama and Brennan and Clapper and Eric, what's his name? He was the AG under Obama. All of those guys, okay? Susan Rice, on and on and on. All those people. What about jurisdiction? Well, here's what I'm going to say, okay? Eric Holder, that's right. Conservative Barbie, how are you today? The jurisdiction, you can reserve your rights when you're going into court. You can still reserve your rights and not give them full jurisdiction and say, I'm just here to listen to whatever it is you're going to say, and then I'll decide whether or not I care. I mean, we always reserve our rights. I always reserve the rights for the people and make it very clear that they're only there in a special appearance according to, as long as they want to stay in the game, I guess, is the only way I can think of it. Okay. As long as they want to keep sitting there and listening to what you have to say, we will engage until we find out that, until we get enough stuff to know that you're actually a criminal. Okay. Because I want it on the record. I want it on the record that they're committing the crime. And so you coax them into their little box, and then you close the lid on them. That's the only way to do it. Pie, how are you? Going back to the beginning so I can comprehend the conversation. Well, we're off track. I can tell you that. But they want to talk about this other stuff. I mean, and on Wednesday, tomorrow, I've got Dallas coming in the show. And we're going to be talking about this court stuff and how the corruption has actually made it so difficult to go to court to even get any kind of remedy for anything anymore. Trump is good at disarming his enemies with their own words. I know. Person divine and Title 12 bank. Well, that's what I'm saying. If you define the words in whatever you're doing, you're codifying that language in the document. That's why you codify the language in the document. That's why whenever you're actually doing a document, you should be putting in, here's all the definitions that apply to this document itself. That's what they do in real estate and other really high profile contracts, is they codify the language within the contract itself so that everybody's clear. This is what this means. How does some low-level judge usurp the president? Exactly. It's a color of law. Yep. Exactly. So they're making it seem as if things are laws, which aren't laws. I mean, we've got that in the Constitution all the time. The Constitution is one thing, and these statutes don't even adhere to the Constitution whatsoever. And I think people are starting to figure this out. They're watching all this stuff play out. They're seeing, okay, we're supposed to have an election. It's supposed to be this way. Okay. But unfortunately, it's this way. And nobody passed any laws to make it that way. And even if they did, it would be against the Constitution, but they do it all the time. They do it with driver's licenses. They do it with business licenses. They do it with taxes. They do it with just every single thing that you can possibly imagine. And the only thing that usurps the Constitution is a contract. That's it. Everything else doesn't usurp the contract. So if I have a contract with somebody to say that I'm giving up one of my rights, like liberals have wearing uniforms. Okay, when you work for this particular business, usually it's fast food, you got to wear this shirt, these pants, this hat, whatever. Okay, you're supposed to do that. And then they whine and cry because they don't like the hat or they don't like the shirt or whatever. And so then they try to sue their employer for something that is a given. When you go to that place, you're supposed to adhere to whatever it is they say. Well, the unfortunate thing is you and I did not give up our rights to the to even have the Constitution. We didn't give up our constitutional rights. We never have. We didn't consciously know anything about that whatsoever. We just thought our constitutional rights apply unless we tell you otherwise. But that is not the way that the government runs. The government assumes that you gave your rights up to them to run your life. And that's not true. So that's why we have things like Hillary Clinton and Obama and every Democrat that's sitting in a seat anywhere telling you what to do. You're not good enough. You are not able to think for yourself. So we're going to do the thinking for you. Yeah, that's right. The government does operate on fraud. Yeah. Allowed to be published for administrative purposes. Well, see, that's the other thing that makes me mad is especially when it comes to mortgages. They're allowed to do administrative process on you. But if you do an administrative process on the mortgage company, they go, you're crazy. That's silly. That's just a bunch of paperwork that doesn't mean anything. Oh, well, yours is a bunch of paperwork that doesn't mean anything. That's what it really is. Okay. And then if you try to enforce what it is you did, it takes you years. I already know because I got one of my friends who is right now in a 2-year battle. She did an administrative process on the mortgage companies. 2 years later, they're still having a fight about it because the judges refuse to acknowledge something that they would readily do for a mortgage company. So it's like, what's the difference? Nothing. And is an administrative process even something that is constitutional? No, it's really not. It's not. No. It's kind of like, you're violating due process that way unless the other person knows. And a lot of times they'll disguise language. They send you letters that you don't understand what they're saying because it's not clear. And there's no meeting of the minds in any contract if it's not clear to you what's going on. And they never tell you the truth. They never do. Yeah, color of law. It's always the color of law for you. But when it comes to you, you have to do strict. You have to be strict about everything that you're doing. And that's why I can't stand these people. I don't think we should be I don't care about the government shutdown. I know some people do because they get federal government money to do different things. I get that. But in the old days, before government welfare, the churches were actually doing this stuff. The churches were the ones who provided food, clothing, shelter. They guided the community. Now we've got churches that are operating under the color of the Bible, the color of the law. They're not even doing what they're supposed to be doing. Did the country collapse during COVID? I think that's what they wanted to do. I think that's what they were hoping would happen. But I don't think that they counted on as many people defying their orders as we did. And I even have some information on that. I thought, oh man, we could do that too, about how COVID wasn't a social experiment, which is what I told you all along, that it was a social experiment to see how many people, a loyalty ritual, to see how many people would actually obey a completely ridiculous mandate. They even told you it's not a law. And then we had people running around. It's a law. It's like, okay, show me the law. Do you know that not one politician went to their local anything, whether it's local, state, or government, U.S. government, federal? Not one politician wrote up anything to make that a law. Not one. Because they already knew it was unconstitutional to begin with. They actually count on the inaction or apathy of the population so they can continue their criminal activity. I know. The dumbing down of America is completely real. Yeah, it's not a law. So when all these cops come up to you and they say stuff, well, it's mandate or whatever, that means it's not a law. If it's not constitutional, you don't have to do it. Yeah, they did. They tried to delete the USA, but it didn't work. Dollar is the name of a unit to which money? By which? I'm going to guess your text, voice to text, because it says which, WITCH. Dollar is a name of unit by which money is measured. That's kind of funny. But yeah, they did try to delete. They tried to take it over. They tried to do whatever they could to take over the United States of America. And what was interesting is, so Obama, when he was in office, okay, he didn't push it as hard as they did after Donald Trump, because they thought that they thought it was, and I don't know why they would think this, but they thought it was going to be Obama, then Hillary. Okay. And they thought after that, they were going to do more Democrats until the whole entire thing was Democrats and there were no conservatives left, because they would have just called, one right after another of unconstitutional laws that, see, I like this warning signs person. Look at this. This is true. Police operate under color of law most of the time, dealing with the public. They are some of the most uneducated people in the law that I've ever experienced. I agree. That's who they use as their strong arms. And it's not about it's not about police officers getting jobs to who knows the Constitution best. It's about who is going to obey somebody telling them what to do without looking it up. Who's not going to challenge the boss and go out there and rough up the public? That's all it is. So now you've got the largest street gang in the United States of America wearing a uniform, putting on a badge, and then pretending as if they understand the law. And they have no idea about the Constitution whatsoever. Because every single one of the statutes, they are tasked by oath. And they don't even know what an oath means, okay? They are tasked by the oath that's coming out of their mouth. And the one that they're signing, because this is how dumb they are, they're signing an oath to actually protect your rights. But that's not what they're doing. They're protecting the court. They're protecting the judge. They're protecting corporations. They do what they're told. And they very rarely take the Constitution and measure that statute or that order against that and say, I'm not doing it. Yeah, I back away from the blue, just so you know. I don't back the blue unconditionally, because the condition is, if you are following the Constitution and protecting people's rights, fine. I will do so. I will back you. And I found one. Maybe two out of all the years. And I'm 63. So at this age, you'd think I would have found more law. And I hate to call them law enforcement because they don't enforce law. Qualified immunity must be removed. When they are held accountable for their actions, then their misbehavior will stop. Well, see, that's the thing is, I don't think qualified immunity necessarily needs to be removed. Because there are qualifiers to their immunity. And it should be qualified immunity. And once you're outside of that little box, then you don't have qualified immunity. And that is where the line is drawn. And more of these cops should be fired and in prison. They should be in prison for the things that they do to people. And they should be sued in their personal capacity. We're doing the same thing with judges right now. We're proving that they're outside of their oath of office and we're asking for their oaths of office, which you should be doing too, because we got to read what that says. What does it actually say? If it doesn't say that they're to uphold the Constitution and probably the Constitution of your state, but definitely the Constitution of the United States, then that's not even a proper oath. So they don't have any loyalty to the Constitution itself. Yes, they get fired and they go to another department and get a job. This is why you guys should be, if you have any encounters with cops and they're unconstitutional, you should be filing a claim against their liability insurance. And I know you're going to say, but what about their bond? They don't always call it a bond, but they definitely have liability insurance. Do you think that they're going to let a bunch of uniformed wackos out there on the streets armed without any liability insurance? Absolutely not. So you should be asking the county attorney or the city attorney to turn over their insurance, and you need to send one to the county attorney or the city attorney plus the department and saying, I want a copy of your insurance or bond. Because if they say, oh, well, we don't have insurance. Oops, maybe you should have insurance. And then they might even reveal the bond. Yeah, but see, here's the thing. Whenever I ask for that information, I copy the DOJ and the FBI. I don't copy this. And well, sometimes I copy the state AG, but most of the time I copy the DOJ and the FBI. Just so you know. Hey, Joyce, nice to see you. And the reason I do that, and I keep the letters, they should have a risk management department. They should have an internal affairs. They don't always comply. Those cops are employees of a municipality, an entity, not police from a state level. Well, there's all different kinds. I mean, there's state police. There's even Secretary of State has their own police force. Who knew? Who knew? So you've got U.S. Marshals. You've got the IRS has cops. It's like, really? Everyone's a cop today. And none of them know the Constitution. So your badge is literally just a badge of harassment. That's it. I say every single time I pass anything like that, I'm like, okay, there's the harassment squad. Because most likely, I never see a victim, hardly ever. I mean, once in a while you'll pass a crash, but it's not very often. Then there might be a victim. Somebody who's on the side of the road. Their car is perfectly functional. There's no victim anywhere. And there's the harassment squad out there giving them crap. Just saying. I mean, you are perfectly within your rights to do certain things. Do I think you should do them? No. But you're within your rights to do it. As long as you don't accost other people with it, whatever it is you're doing. All government is incorporated. Every police department is incorporated. They really have zero authority over us. I know. All these entities only have the power that the people give them. Because if the people don't allow it, then they can't do it. I mean, how many people would it take for all of you guys to go down to your local city meeting and say, this is unconstitutional, this is unconstitutional, this is unconstitutional, and we're not doing it? Like if everybody went to their city council, and I'm talking about city right now, and said, you know what, we're sick and tired of paying business licenses for people to come and harass us at our businesses. Because that's all they do. The health department for restaurants, all they are is a ripe for bribery. That's all it is. You pay them a bribe and You see restaurants. Why would you, if you looked in the back of some of those restaurants, it's absolutely ridiculous that they even have, that they're even open. The people shouldn't even eat there, but they continue to take the bribe, and then they give them a passing thing. So it's just, I don't see them anymore as anything other than a harassment squad. Good restaurants will keep going. Bad restaurants will be out of business. Good builders will keep building. Bad builders will be out of business. People will know. If people started asking about what was going on with this, that, and the other, and ask questions, then you'd have your answer. The problem is we can't get any people smart enough to keep asking. Yeah, from labs. Who wants that? Not me. No way. So now I guess when we go to the restaurant, which I never do. I mean, I don't go to restaurants hardly ever. I can't even remember the last restaurant I went to. Anyway, and we said, what kind of meat is this? Is this real meat or is this lab meat? You're going to have to start asking that question now. This is how ridiculous it's become. I don't know about you, but I certainly didn't want to have all this stuff. That's why I eat at home. And even that's not always good, because you're still going to the store. You're still getting tainted food. Obama, I feel like Obama opened the door to all of this stuff. And now it's almost like, how are you going to put a lid on it? When he opened up the media to be able to give you propaganda 24/7 without an element of truth in the whole entire broadcast, I think that is where the road actually turned. Because before that, you had to have truth. You had to have truth. And if you didn't have truth, you would have had to, you could have sued them for that. And I think you still could sue them for that, because the media has really affected people's lives for the worse. All right. It's affected people's lives to the point that they don't have any hope anymore. If you go out on the streets and you talk to liberals, they would act as if the entire sky is falling and you need to take shelter right now. Like, what? You know, Five Guys is real meat. That's nice. And the people still like him. I know. I don't understand why anybody can like people who are harming you all the time. I mean, but then you got actors like Robert De Niro who go on shows who is totally clueless about what's really going on. I mean, he's like a rabid animal, more so than any Democrat really that I've seen. He's like a rabid animal. He's like vying to be Rosie O'Donnell. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever how a person can have a reprobate mind. But that is exactly what a reprobate mind looks like. Everything is backwards. And that's what we have today. And you guys have to be very, very careful on who you're trusting. In fact, I don't even think you should be trusting anyone at all. There's only one entity to trust, and that's God, and that's it. God will give you the discernment to know what to do. Live in the ever-present now? Yeah, in reality. If you live in reality, I think that you're going to be, it might be rough, but at least you'll be able to, I think, weather the storm. But the bottom line is the only one you can trust is God. That's it. See you guys tomorrow. Don't forget, guest is going to be Malibu, Dallas. And we're going to talk about this court system. So some of you might want to keep your, make sure that you keep yourself alert, because we're going to be 2:00 Central Standard Time. And I think it's going to be very interesting, especially to people who are in Texas.